bestbookbits.com brings you the book summary of The Icarus Deception, How High Will You Fly by Seth Godin. In Seth Godin's most inspiring book, he challenges readers to find the courage to treat their work as a form of art. Everyone knows the Icarus's father made him wings and told him not to fly too close to the sun. He ignored the warning and plunged to his doom. The lesson? Play it safe. Listen to the experts. It was the perfect propaganda for the industrial economy. What boss wouldn't want employees to believe that obedience and conformity are the keys to success? But we tend to forget that Icarus was also warned not to fly too low because seawater would ruin the lift in his wings. Flying too low is even more dangerous than flying too high because it feels deceptively safe. The safety zone has moved. Conformity no longer leads to comfort. But the good news is that creativity is scarce and more valuable than ever. So is choosing to do something unpredictable and brave. Make art. Being an artist isn't a genetic disposition or a specific talent. It's an attitude we can all adopt. It's a hunger to seize new ground, make connections, and work without a map. If you do these things, you're an artist, no matter what it says on your business card. Godin shows us it's possible and convinces us why it's essential. Book summary. Summary part 1. The Icarus Deception makes us overly cautious, but we need to move out of our comfort zone. The future will be increasingly automated. Machines will take over more and more manual and administrative tasks, so what's left for us humans? Well, we'll need to become a lot more creative, but we've been far too slow in recognizing this. Blame it on the Icarus Deception. We live in a society in which we settle for too little. We've taken the Greek myth of Icarus to heart, but we've also misunderstood it. Icarus was the son of Daedalus, a craftsman thrown into prison together with his son for disobeying Minos, the king of Crete. Daedalus had a plan, however, and started building wings for himself and Icarus to help them escape. He told his son not to fly too high, so the sun would not melt the wax holding his wings together. Icarus didn't listen and soared towards the sun. Soon enough, his wings melted and he plunged to his death. Our culture has fixated on this part of the myth. Don't fly too high is the lesson we've been learned, but that's not all there is. Daedalus also warned Icarus not to fly too low, as the spray from the sea would saturate his wings and drag him down. Aiming for the stars can be risky, but so is being overly cautious. It's worth remembering this second piece of advice. If you want to thrive, we need to get out of our comfort zone, meaning we mustn't fly too low. After all, the world has changed. In the past, it was possible to land a safe and well-paid office job with rewards. That model came to an end in the 1990s. Today, steady employment is guaranteed only to creatives who aren't afraid to take risks and initiate new ventures. Just think of the internet startups like Facebook, launched at a time when success of this kind of business model was far from certain. We need to learn from that. The new comfort zone is all about creativity and connecting with others. Summary part 2. There are fewer gatekeepers and more opportunities in the new connected economy. When a kitten is in distress, its parents come and picks up by the scruff of its neck and carries it to safety. A monkey, by contrast, has to actively grab its parents' back if it wants to escape danger. In the new economy, humans need to be more like monkeys and less like kittens. We need to learn to be more proactive. So, what defines the new economy? Well, two things stand out. It's more connected and there are fewer gatekeepers. These two features are linked because everyone is connected through the internet. It becomes harder for gatekeepers to tell us what to do or to set limits. Take creative jobs. Would-be musicians or actors used to rely on the approval of authorities in their industries like agents or directors, the gatekeepers. Today, however, people can take their careers into their own hands. Platforms like YouTube and iTunes means anyone can connect directly with their target audience and share his or her creative work. And that creates lots of new opportunities. Think of the music industry. Before the internet revolution, the path to the top was clearly defined. You waited to be talent scouted by a label, wrote a hit, and then hoped to be lucky enough to avoid being ripped off by your employers. The chance of making it as a musician was slim. Today, none of that applies. Write and produce a song that two people buy on iTunes, and you'll have made more than the royalties you would have received back in the pre-internet days for selling a whole album. But it's not just as musicians who stand to benefit from the new connected economy. Designers, consultants, teachers, and therapists can all set up online businesses on YouTube, personal websites, social media platforms, and reach an audience of millions. Summary part 3. We need to redefine humility and fully commit to our art. There's a Japanese word that describes what it's like to fully commit to an activity and immerse yourself in it. Kamawaza, literally translated, it means like the gods. That might sound terribly arrogant, but that's because our own understanding of humility is flawed and in urgent need of redefinition. Humility doesn't mean accepting poor performance or trying one's best. On the contrary, there's humility in working hard to become as good as you possibly can be at something. When you fully commit to a task, you lose yourself in it and are no longer self-conscious about what you're doing. That means you stop worrying about people's opinions. That's real humility. When you achieve that kind of humility, you become much better at working with and for other people, sharing your best self and achievements with others. It allows you to take the responsibilities and lead others while taking the initiative, even in the face of risks. In this sense, for example, you have a strong sense of fashion. It would be more humble to launch your own fashion label rather than stick with your own job as an office clerk or deliver uninspired work there. Redefining humility in this way allows you to concentrate on contributing your best work to society without arrogance or selfishness. And there's another point to be made about humility. It's the precondition for being fully committed to your art. And commitment is key to your success. If you keep your safe job and pursue your art or anything you're passionate about in your spare time, you're unlikely to achieve anything with it. Creating something that you put out there in the world and inspire people with takes humility and struggle, but there's no guarantee you'll succeed. Unlike a regular job, art doesn't have a fixed salary. All your effort might come to nothing. That's the harsh truth, and accepting it requires both confidence and humility. Summary part 4. To become an artist, you have to be independent and develop grit. What is grit? Not the stuff you sometimes find between salad leaves. In fact, it's one of the most important assets of an artist can have. To put it bluntly, if you want to be an artist, you must have grit. Art isn't just about painting pictures or composing music. It's an activity that you pursue creatively with the aim of producing something new in the world. Maybe it's a revolutionary customer service system or a new form of abstract painting. Whatever it is, you'll need grit to get it out there. Take it from the psychologist Angela Duckworth, the author of Grit. She noted that lots of people think grit just means perseverance. That's not quite the same thing, however. Grit is all about developing clear goals that reflects your true passions. That could be something like establishing a social platform to bring environmental campaigners together. The vision is key. Once you know what you want to achieve, it's easier to persevere in the quest to get it done. But grit isn't the only thing you'll need as an artist in the new economy. You also need to be independent in mind and spirit. External oversight gets in the way of pursuing your ambitions. To be a true artist, you'll need to get rid of outside influences that control your work, like bosses and superiors. Independence also means learning to do without external motivation. To succeed, you'll need to become self-sufficient. How good or bad you feel about yourself and your work shouldn't depend on others' approvals. You're the sole judge of your work. Finally, you need to become indifferent to success and failure. Turn on the TV and you'll see hundreds of successful acts producing throwaway music that will soon be forgotten. Acclaim doesn't always reflect the true worth of what you're producing. Remember, just because you're not getting a ton of recognition doesn't mean what you're doing isn't great and profound. Summary part 5. Shame is the artist's greatest enemy, so it's best to focus on connection and ignore criticism. Superheroes can achieve pretty much anything because they usually have an Achilles heel. Think of Superman and kryptonite, the alien mineral that instantly robs him of his powers. Artists have their own kryptonite to contend with, though it's altogether less exotic than the material mined or on distant planets. Shame. So what makes an artist so vulnerable to shame? Well, what defines them is their complete investment in their creative efforts. Their work is deeply personal and extraordinarily meaningful to them. That's why criticism stings so much. Imagine that your boss criticized your ability to take accurate notes during meetings. You probably wouldn't worry too much about it, right? But imagine how hard you'd take criticism of a stand-up concept you've been working on for months and strongly believed in. Criticism is often a way of shaming people, and shame has long been used to make people conform to societal expectations. Teachers, for example, often try to control students with independent spirits who think outside the box by shaming them in front of their peers. Society also holds us back from pursuing our dreams and becoming free by making us feel ashamed of what it tells us is arrogance or foolishness. That means you have to grow a thick skin and learn to ignore criticism if you want to make it as an artist. After all, shame will quickly block your endeavors. Your only option is to refuse to be deflected from your aim by what others say. The best way of doing that? Focus on positive connections and don't seek out negative reviews and comments. After all, it only takes one negative comment to make you question yourself. Summary part 6. To become more successful, learn to recognize opportunities by becoming more observant. The author Ray Bradbury once gave would-be creatives a bit of a sound advice. The most important thing of all, he suggested, was to avoid getting stuck in one's own mind. Being creative is about engaging with the world rather than constantly thinking about it. And if you want to engage, you have to learn to really look at the world. So what's important of this? Well, success is all about recognizing opportunities. Usually, however, we see the world through our own tunnel vision. We interpret things according to our own preconceptions, which clouds our judgments. Think of the way lots of people view new technologies. They worry about the way this will change the world for the worse and choose to ignore them. In the end, they miss out on all sorts of great opportunities. Just ask Fred Wilson, a venture capitalist who's made a fortune off the back of looking at the world as it really is, knowing which way the wind was blowing. He decided to invest in internet platforms like Twitter, which went on to become massive successes. Editors Alan Weber and Bill Taylor are another great example. They realized that the internet startups were businesses of the future and decided to launch Fast Company, a magazine covering this new sector, in 1995. It's gone on to be a huge commercial success. What these pioneers have in common is a knack for recognizing opportunity when they see it, but that's not something they were born with. They learned it by training themselves to be more observant. Small things really can make all the difference. Take it from the author, Paco Underhill, a man known for his attention to detail. While doing consulting work for a retail company, he noticed that female customers were put off by other customers brushing past them while they were shopping. He recommended that shops widen their aisles. The outcome, a tremendous increase in revenues. Summary part 7. True artists are characterized by their obsession with their art and not by their social status. Steve Martin is one of the most successful comedians in the world, but actually, he's not all that funny. How can that be? Well, art isn't much about your talent as it is about your obsession. Martin is a classic example of this. In some ways, he's an anti-comedian. He's neither particularly expressive nor known for delivering laugh-out punchlines. That explains why he spent so long failing at his chosen career, often traveling the country to perform shows in the front of just 3 or 4 people. He didn't let that put him off, however. He continued plying his trade and obsessing over small details like the perfect hand gestures or moment to end a sketch. That work paid off in the end, because his attention to details of comedy, his non-comedic side, began amusing larger audiences. He was hilariously precise when he wasn't a comics comic. Audiences started cheering him on and urging him to finish skits and completing Martin's lines for him. Gradually, he became less of a comic and more of a host and entertainer. That just goes to show that being an artist doesn't always conform to common stereotypes. Another misconception is the notion that you have to be an impoverished, tortured soul to make it as an artist. According to that image, the artist is an extravagant bohemian in tattered rags, defying conventional morality. But like the misleading idea of talent being crucial for success, this is a myth. Think of TED Talks. Most of the speakers are perfectly ordinary people, not eccentrics. Sometimes they're slightly dull. What makes them special is their absolute dedication to making a difference in their chosen fields. And that's the mark of a true artist. Summary part 8. Writing every day will make you more creative, but remember to be kind, boss to yourself. Writers often talk about being blocked, but you have ever noticed that hardly anyone ever suffers from speaker's block? Speaking just feels too natural to imagine not being able to get the words out there. After all, everyone gets up every day, sees people and talks to them. Writing, on the other hand, is an entirely different matter. Getting your thoughts on paper is often the bottleneck in which your creativity gets trapped. The key is to treat writing like speaking, and that means doing it every day. You don't worry about talking because it's something you do automatically all the time. If you get into the habit of writing all the time, you'll soon find that a blank page isn't nearly as terrifying as it used to be. In fact, Your writing will take on the same qualities as talking. You'll find a flow and eventually your own unique voice. Practice, as they say, really does make perfect, so make it the rule that you sit down once a day and write about something that's meaningful to you. Even better, get it out there in the world and put it on a blog. That same dynamic applies to everything you might want to do. If you're an aspiring filmmaker but find yourself feeling blocked every time you have a camera in your hand, get into the habit of filming every day. Do that enough and it will become second nature. This requires self-discipline, but it's important to remember to be a kind boss to yourself. Being your own boss is often trickier than being someone else's boss. There are fewer boundaries, and it's easy to end up being much tougher on yourself than anyone else. The best way of avoiding that is to pay attention to the way you talk to yourself. Make an effort to be constructive and encouraging rather than purely critical. Point out, for example, what you've achieved and praise yourself even if it's only a small thing. Most importantly, stop telling yourself you can't do something. Remember Steve Martin from the earlier book summary. That's the kind of attitude you need to take on. Who cares if you're not perfect yet? The only thing that will make you better is pursuing your passion relentlessly. Once you start doing that, you'll be set to thrive in today's changing world. In review, the Icarus Deception book summary, the key messages in the book. Art is about creativity, and that's something you can apply to any field. Whether you're an aspiring painter or opening a new online boutique, thinking creatively is what gives you an edge in today's fast-paced economy. Computers can do the humdrum work, but there's plenty of space for independent thinkers and creators full of great ideas and passion to pursue them. So stop worrying about immediate success or the approval of others and get yourself out there. Actionable advice. Remember that art isn't always going to be fun. Whatever it is you want to create, there'll be moments of struggle, challenge, and even pain. But don't despair. There are hurdles every artist faces on his path. Embrace them and focus on how much suffering you can put up with. The vital question you'll need to ask yourself is if the final product is really worth it. It usually is. They'll help you accept pain as an inevitable part of your life as an artist. Once you've internalized the fact, you're much less likely to give up on your project. And that's a wrap on this book summary, The Icarus Deception by Seth Godin. If you want the summary, click the link to download this. We at Best Book Bits have done over 1,000 book summaries in video, written, and audio format. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, check out our website, bestbookbits.com, and you can follow the audio summaries on Spotify, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast. Thank you for watching and listening.